What if you were called a hero for saving a life you secretly wanted to end? This is the story of how that one single lie created a prison for them both.
The first thing you should know is that I saved my brother's life. 5 years ago, I found him turning blue on his bathroom floor, and I was hailed as a hero. My parents call me his guardian angel. He calls me his savior. He's clean now, a motivational speaker, a testament to the power of a second chance. The second thing you should know is that none of that is true. The truth is, when I found my brother that night, he was already dead, and my first instinct was to leave him there. I stood over his body and waited, hoping he would stay dead. And his recovery? It's a carefully constructed lie that I maintain every single week. He's not clean. His new addiction is just supplied by a different dealer, me. And the third thing you should know, the thing that keeps me awake at night, is that this whole rotten structure is starting to crumble. My wife suspects something is wrong, my brother is getting more demanding, threatening to expose everything, and I'm starting to realize that the night I saved him, I didn't prevent a tragedy, I just postponed it, and I made it infinitely worse. This isn't a story about a miracle. This is a story about how I tried to get away with murder, failed, and ended up in a prison I built for myself. And I think my sentence is almost up. My younger brother, Ethan, is the great success story of our family. He's one of those people who just seems to glide through life. He was the popular one in high school. He got a business degree from a good university and climbed the corporate ladder in sales with what looked like zero effort. He's not a bad guy. He's charismatic, generous, and has always been the golden child of our family. I'm the older brother. I work in logistics. I'm quiet, introverted, and have spent most of my life feeling like I'm living in his shadow. It's not his fault. It's just the way things are. To understand how a person gets here, you have to go back. Not just a few years, but decades. You have to understand the soil this whole thing grew out of. Ethan wasn't just my brother, he was the organizing principle of our family. He was 2 years younger than me, but he was always bigger, louder, brighter. He had this supernova charisma that drew people in. He was handsome in that effortless, slightly scruffy way, with a smile that could talk you out of being mad at him for just about anything. I was the opposite. I was quiet, serious, introverted. I got good grades. I was responsible. I was the wallpaper. He was the art. Even as kids, our dynamic was set. I remember one summer when I was 12 and he was 10, we decided to build a tree house in the woods behind our house. I spent a week drawing up plans, measuring angles, figuring out how to make it structurally sound. I was obsessed with making it safe, making it right. Ethan wasn't interested in any of that. He was interested in the vision. He wanted a rope ladder, a pirate flag from one of my mom's old pillowcases, and a secret compartment to hide snacks. We spent a whole month building it. I did most of the actual work, the sawing and the hammering. He provided the creative direction and the entertainment. But when it was done, and all our neighbors' friends came to see it, who did they think was the genius behind it? It was Ethan's treehouse. I was just the guy who helped. I didn't even mind. It just seemed natural. That's how it always was. But the same energy that made him charming also made him reckless. Our parents couldn't see it, or they wouldn't. To them, his recklessness was just spirit. My responsibility was just expected. When he was 16 and got caught trying to steal beer from a convenience store, my dad smoothed it over with the owner. The story became a funny family anecdote about Ethan's mischievous phase. A year later, when I got my first and only speeding ticket, my dad sat me down for a 2-hour lecture on responsibility and setting an example. The double standard wasn't spoken. It was just the air we breathed.
College is when it really started to slide. He went to a big party school. I went to a quiet state university closer to home. The distance gave him freedom. The stories started as typical college debauchery, but they had a darker edge. I remember getting a call from him during his freshman year. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. I had a midterm the next day. He was hysterical, whispering into the phone from a dorm bathroom. He'd gone to a party, taken some pills, he wasn't even sure what they were, and was having a full-blown panic attack, convinced his heart was going to explode. He was too scared to call campus security because he knew he'd get expelled. I had to lie to my own roommate, say my mom was sick, and drive 2 hours in the middle of the night. I found him huddled in his dorm room, shaking. I sat with him for hours, talking him down, feeding him water, just being the calm, beige presence he needed. I found the rest of the pills in an Altoids tin in his desk drawer and flushed them down the toilet. He cried. He swore it was a stupid one-time mistake, that he just wanted to impress some girl. He was so convincing, so full of shame and remorse. And I, the responsible older brother, I cleaned up his mess. I drove the 2 hours back to my campus, took my midterm on 3 hours of sleep, and never told our parents. That was the first time I became a true accomplice. Not just a bystander, but an active participant in hiding the severity of his problem. After college, the slide steepened. He moved from one dead-end job to another, always getting fired for being late or just not showing up. Between jobs, he'd stay with me. He was a terrible roommate. He'd leave a trail of chaos in his wake. Dirty dishes, clothes on the floor, empty bottles, and he was always broke. I'd loan him money for his car payment or his phone bill. My wife, Sarah, who I was just dating at the time, was incredibly patient. He's your brother. He's just figuring things out. But I knew, deep down, he wasn't. He was just falling. The heroin started about 7 years ago. A friend of his told me. And just like that, the brother I knew was gone. It was like a switch was flipped. The charming, funny kid was replaced by a gaunt, sweaty, desperate stranger who just happened to look like Ethan. His entire world shrank to a single point, the next fix. The phone calls to me changed. They weren't for rent money anymore. They were for $40 at 11 p.m., for $60 at 7 a.m. The excuses were gone. It was just raw, desperate need. That's when the stealing from our parents started in earnest. It culminated in the incident with my mom's jewelry. My dad had cut him completely off. He changed the locks on their house, but Ethan knew the house better than they did. He broke in through a basement window one afternoon when they were out. He didn't take the TV or the laptops. He went straight to their bedroom, to my mom's jewelry box. He took everything that had any value. Her wedding ring, which was a simple gold band but meant the world to her, a string of pearls my dad had bought her for their 25th anniversary, and a small antique diamond ring that had belonged to my grandmother. My mom was a wreck. It wasn't about the monetary value, it was the violation. It was the fact that her son, her baby, had done this to her. My dad, a proud, quiet man, was utterly broken. He called the police, but he couldn't bring himself to name his own son as the suspect, even though we all knew. The official report just said, a break-in. He couldn't bear the shame of it becoming a public record. The next weekend, I did what I always did. I went to go clean up the mess. I took $500 out of my own savings, and I started making the rounds of the pawn shops in the worst parts of the city. It was a grim, humiliating tour. In the fourth shop I visited, I saw it. Sitting in a grimy glass case next to a collection of cheap watches and a power drill. My grandmother's ring. The price tag on it said $200. I remember staring at it, this sacred family heirloom reduced to a price tag that was probably enough for 3 days' worth of heroin for my brother. My hands were shaking. I bought it back. I didn't say a word to my parents. A few weeks later, when I was over for dinner, I snuck into their bedroom and just put the ring back in the drawer of my mom's nightstand.
She found it the next morning. She called me, weeping with joy. She was convinced she had just misplaced it in her grief and sadness over the break-in. She said it was a little miracle, a sign that things would be okay. I just agreed with her. It was easier. It was always easier to just absorb the pain and the cost myself, to patch the holes in the boat so my parents wouldn't see how fast we were sinking. But every lie, every secret, every miracle I had to manufacture just added another layer of resentment. He wasn't just destroying his own life. He was forcing me to become a liar to protect the people I loved from him. And that, I think, is what I could never forgive. That's the foundation this whole nightmare is built on. The years leading up to that night were a blur of escalating crises. We tried another intervention. It was a disaster. Ethan showed up an hour late, looking pale and annoyed. My dad had prepared a script, his hands trembling as he read it. "Son, we love you, but we can't watch you do this to yourself anymore.
Ethan just rolled his eyes. He let my dad finish, then looked at us all and said, "Are you done? Is this little performance over? Because I've got places to be." He stood up to leave. I stood in his way. For a second, I thought about physically stopping him, about tackling him, about screaming in his face. But he just looked at me with this dead-eyed pity. "Get out of my way, Mark," he said. And I did. I just stepped aside. He walked out, and my dad just crumpled, putting his face in his hands. That was the day I think I truly started to hate my brother. The day I stopped seeing him as a victim and started seeing him as the architect of our family's misery. After that, I pulled back. I stopped answering his late-night calls. I stopped giving him money. I told my parents I was done. "I can't fix him," I told them. "I'm not going to enable him anymore." It felt good for a while, like I was finally setting a boundary. But the guilt was always there, gnawing at me. My mom would call me crying, telling me she hadn't heard from him in days, and the old sense of responsibility would come flooding back. The truth is, I never really detached. I just built a thicker wall of resentment. Which brings me to that night, the night of the miracle. It was a Tuesday in November. It was cold and raining. I hadn't heard from Ethan in 4 days, which was unusual. But my mom had called me 3 times that day. She had a bad feeling, she said, a mother's intuition. "Please, Mark," she begged on the last call, her voice cracking. "Just go check on him. Just knock on his door. I need to know he's okay." I was tired. I'd had a long, stressful week at work. My wife Sarah and I were supposed to have a quiet night in. The last thing on earth I wanted was to drive 45 minutes across town in the rain to deal with whatever fresh hell Ethan had created. I sighed, the sound heavy with years of this same routine. "Okay, Mom, I'll go." I remember the drive. The windshield wipers thumping, smearing the rain across the glass. The city lights were blurry and distorted. I was listening to some dumb sports talk radio show trying to distract myself, but my mind was already rehearsing the possibilities. Scenario A, he's not there. I call my mom, tell her, she panics more, and my night is ruined by her anxiety. Scenario B, he's there, high as a kite. He either yells at me for showing up unannounced or tries to get money from me. My night is ruined by a confrontation. Scenario C, he's there in some kind of medical distress. I have to call an ambulance, deal with the police, and spend the rest of my night in a hospital waiting room. My night is ruined. There was no good scenario. His apartment building was a 3-story brick box in a part of town that was slowly decaying. It always smelled of stale cigarettes, damp carpets, and boiled cabbage. I parked my car, pulled my jacket collar up against the rain, and walked to the entrance. I had a key to his apartment that he didn't know about. I'd copied it years ago, after an incident where he'd passed out and left the stove on. I told myself it was for emergencies, but holding it in my hand, it felt less like a tool for rescue and more like a key to a cage I couldn't escape. I climbed the 3 flights of stairs. The carpeting was worn and stained. I could hear a TV blaring from one apartment, a baby crying from another. I got to his door, number 3B. I knocked first. A loud, sharp rap. "Ethan? It's Mark. Mom was worried." Silence. Just the sound of the rain against the hallway window. I knocked again, harder this time. "Ethan, open up!" Nothing. A cold knot of dread started to form in my stomach. This was different. Usually, he'd at least yell for me to go away. I put my ear to the door. I couldn't hear anything. No TV, no music, just silence. I pulled out the key. It felt heavy and cold in my trembling hand. I slid it into the lock. It turned with a quiet click that sounded deafeningly loud in the silent hallway. I pushed the door open. The smell hit me first. It was a complex, nauseating cocktail. Sour, unwashed laundry, old, rotting food, stale cigarette smoke, and underneath it all the sharp, chemical, sickly sweet smell that I'd come to associate with his drug use. The apartment was a disaster zone, even worse than usual. Empty pizza boxes were stacked on the floor, clothes were everywhere, a lamp was knocked over. The only light came from the dreary gray streetlights filtering through the dirty window. "Ethan?" I called out. My voice sounded weak. I checked the small living room. Empty. The kitchen was piled high with dirty dishes. I walked down the short hallway towards the bedroom and bathroom. The bathroom door was slightly ajar. That's where I found him. He was slumped on the floor, his back against the bathtub, his legs splayed out in front of him. He was wearing nothing but a pair of boxer shorts. His skin was a color I will never forget. A pale, waxy, bluish gray. It didn't look like skin anymore. It looked like something you'd see in a butcher shop. His lips were a deep, dark blue. His eyes were half open, but they were glassy, seeing nothing. There was a syringe on the grimy tile floor next to him. A blackened spoon and a lighter sat on the edge of the sink. He wasn't moving. He wasn't breathing. For a moment, my brain just stopped working. I couldn't process what I was seeing. It was like looking at a mannequin, a prop from a movie. This couldn't be my brother, my son. But it was. Then my training kicked in. The first aid courses my company made us take every 2 years. Check for a response. I knelt down. The floor was cold and sticky. "Ethan?" I said, shaking his shoulder. No response. His skin was cold and clammy. Check for breathing. Check for a pulse. I put my ear close to his mouth. Nothing. I felt for a pulse on his neck, my fingers pressing into the cold skin. Nothing. I checked his wrist. Nothing. He was gone. And my first clear, unbidden thought was, it's over. Thank God, it's finally over. I stood up, backing away slowly. I looked at the body on the floor, and the years of anger, of resentment, of endless grinding exhaustion, they just washed away. And in their place was this profound, absolute quiet. The constant noise in my head, the worry, the what if, the next impending crisis, it was just gone. There was only silence. It was the most peaceful I had felt in 15 years. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered over the screen. I knew what I was supposed to do. Dial 911. The script played out in my head. The sirens, the paramedics rushing in, the futile attempts at CPR, the police officers with their notebooks, the questions, having to call my parents and tell them their son was dead, having to hear my mother scream, the obituary, the funeral, the endless parade of sympathetic friends and relatives all looking at us with pity, the public shame of it all. And then the monster's thought arrived. It wasn't a whisper. It was a clear, logical, fully formed idea. I don't have to do any of that. I can just leave. I was the only one who knew I was here. I could walk out, lock the door, go home, and get into bed with my wife. I could say I knocked and there was no answer. Someone else would find him. The landlord, when the rent was late. It might be days, maybe a week, but it wouldn't be me. The story would be over. The nightmare would be finished.
So I decided, but I had to be sure, absolutely sure. I couldn't leave if there was even a 1 in a million chance. I needed him to be gone. So I decided to wait. I looked at the digital clock on his cable box in the living room, its red numbers glowing in the dark. 8:17 p.m. 10 minutes. A respectable amount of time. 10 minutes to confirm what I already knew. Then I would walk away. I stood there, leaning against the door frame of the bathroom, and I just watched. The only sounds were the maddening drip, drip, drip of the leaky faucet in the sink and the low hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. I didn't look at his face. I looked at his chest, still. I looked at the grimy shower curtain with its constellation of mildew stains. I looked at a half-squeezed tube of toothpaste on the counter. My mind was fixated on these stupid, mundane details, anything to not think about the fact that I was standing vigil over my brother's death, hoping for it to be final. The clock ticked. 8:20. My heart was a slow, heavy drum in my ears. 8:23. I felt a strange sense of detachment, like I was watching a scene from a movie I'd seen before. 8:25. 5 more seconds. I started to turn to get ready to leave. My hand was already reaching for the doorknob. And then at 8:26, it happened. A breath. It wasn't a breath. It was a hitch, a spasm, a deep, ragged gasp that seemed to come from somewhere impossibly deep inside him. His whole chest convulsed. It was the sound of a machine trying to restart itself. It was followed by another shallow breath, and then a weak cough. He was alive. And the profound silence in my head was shattered by a single deafening internal scream. God damn it! The disappointment was so sharp, so bitter, it was almost a physical taste in my mouth. My freedom, my family's freedom, the clean, quiet end to 15 years of chaos had been snatched away from me in a single rattling gasp. For a moment, I just stood there frozen again. My first impulse was still to run. Just get out. He's breathing. He's alive. My morbid duty is done. Someone else can find him. But I couldn't. I had crossed a line in my own head. Standing there and waiting for him to die felt like one kind of monstrous act, but leaving him now, knowing he was alive but helpless, felt like another. It was more direct. It felt more like murder than what I had just been doing. The logic is twisted, I know, but in that moment, it made sense. But I still didn't call 911. The original reasons were still there. The police, the questions, the public shame. But now a new, more powerful and insidious reason was forming. If I left him to be found, I would have no control over what happened next. He'd get swept up in the system, maybe get a criminal charge for possession. He'd be a victim, a statistic. My parents would rally around him, he'd become a martyr, and the cycle would continue. But what if I was the system? What if this was the rock bottom he needed, but I could manage it? I could be the one who saved him, and in so doing, I could finally gain some leverage, some control over the chaos that had ruled our lives. It was a God complex, born out of desperation and resentment. I convinced myself it wasn't a monstrous thought, it was a practical one. The next few minutes were a frantic, adrenaline-fueled blur. I went from passive observer to active conspirator. I slapped his face hard. "Ethan!" I yelled, my voice hoarse. "Can you hear me?" His eyes fluttered open. They were unfocused, milky. He just groaned. He was alive but barely conscious. He had no idea what was happening. First, the evidence. I grabbed the syringe from the floor and my fingers were cloying from the sticky coldness. I bent the needle and wrapped it in toilet paper. I took the blackened spoon and the lighter from the sink. Then I went into his squalid living room and found the rest of his stash. A small, pathetic-looking baggie with a bit of brown powder in it, tucked inside a cigarette pack. I took all of it, went back to the bathroom and flushed it down the toilet. I watched the water swirl, carrying away the proof of his crime, my crime now too.
Then, getting him out of there. He was dead weight, a sack of bones held together by skin. He couldn't walk. I had to half drag, half carry him. I hooked my arms under us, and his head lolled back. The smell of his unwashed body, of sweat and sickness, was overpowering. Getting him down the 3 flights of stairs was a nightmare. I kept banging him against the walls. A neighbor opened their door a crack and peeked out, then quickly shut it. They didn't want to see. No one ever wanted to see. I finally got him to my car. I wrestled him into the passenger seat. He just slumped against the window, leaving a greasy smudge on the glass. The whole way, he was mumbling, incoherent. The names of people I didn't know. Fragments of sentences. I drove, but not to the nearest hospital. I drove towards a smaller community hospital, about 5 miles away, one where they wouldn't know him. I didn't take him to the entrance. I parked on a dark side street about a block away from the emergency room. The rain had slowed to a drizzle. I got out, went around to the passenger side, and opened the door. He almost fell out onto the pavement. "I'm sorry about this, Ethan," I whispered, though I knew he couldn't understand me. I pulled him out of the car, propped him up against a brick wall on the curb, and just left him there. A piece of human garbage discarded on the street. I got back in my car, drove 2 blocks away to a 7-Eleven, and used the payphone outside. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I dialed 911. There's a man passed out on the corner of Elm and 2nd. I think it's a drug overdose. I hung up before they could ask any questions. Then I drove home, the entire time looking in my rearview mirror, expecting to see flashing lights. The next day, the performance began. I waited for the call from the hospital. When it came, I feigned shock, horror. "Is he okay? What happened?" I called my parents. I played the part of the worried brother perfectly. We all rushed to the hospital. The doctor told us it was a miracle, that he was lucky an anonymous caller had spotted him, that a few more minutes and he would have been dead from respiratory failure. And I became the hero. It was so easy. I told them the story I had prepared. I told them I just had a bad feeling after talking to Mom, that I went to his apartment and he wasn't there. I said I drove around looking for him and that I was the one who spotted him on the curb. I told them I made the anonymous call because I panicked and didn't know what to do. They didn't just believe me, they clung to the story. It was the narrative they needed. I wasn't just the responsible son anymore, I was a guardian angel. My mom hugged me, crying, telling me I had saved her baby, and the lie cemented itself as family history. The hospital detoxed him. From there, he went into a long-term rehab facility, a nice one that my parents paid for, and this time it seemed to stick. For 6 months, he was gone. He came out looking like a different person. He had gained weight. The color had returned to his face. The gaunt, haunted look in his eyes was replaced by a clear, focused sobriety. He started going to 12-step meetings. He was full of recovery jargon, like making amends, one day at a time, higher power. He apologized to all of us, weeping. It was the most convincing performance of his life. And my poor, hopeful parents, they bought every word. The new, clean version of Ethan was terrified of relapsing. He understood, finally, that heroin was a death sentence for him. But he couldn't handle life raw. The anxiety, the cravings, the crushing boredom of sobriety. It was too much. He came to me about a year after he got out of rehab. We met for coffee. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his cup. He said, "I can't do it, man." He wouldn't look me in the eye. "I'm going to use again. I can feel it. I think about it every single day. But I can't go back to that. I need something to just take the edge off."
He had been talking to people in his recovery circles, the Whisper Network. He'd heard about Suboxone, the miracle drug for addicts, an opioid partial agonist that satisfies the brain's cravings without providing the euphoric high. It keeps you stable. It keeps you from getting sick. It lets you function. But getting a legitimate prescription was a problem for him. He'd have to go to a special clinic, admit that he was on the verge of relapse. It would go on his permanent medical record. He was terrified our parents would find out, that his miracle recovery would be exposed as a fraud. "You have to help me, Mark," he pleaded, finally looking at me. His eyes were desperate. "You're the only one I can trust. Can you find some for me? I'll pay you back, I swear." And I said yes. I didn't even hesitate. In my twisted, God-complex logic, it felt like the perfect final step of my plan. This was how I could truly control the situation. He wouldn't be on the streets. He wouldn't be using dirty needles. He'd be taking a safer, more manageable drug, and it would be supplied by me. I could be his gatekeeper, not just for his money, but for his very addiction. I convinced myself it was an act of mercy, a way to keep him alive and functional, to protect my parents from another round of heartbreak. So began my new life, my new routine, my second full-time job. I had to learn a new language, a new world. I went down some dark internet rabbit holes, learning about pricing, dosages, and where to find what I needed. I eventually got a lead through a guy from my old high school who had gone down a bad path himself. A name and a number. The dealer's name is Ray. He's a nervous, twitchy guy in his late 40s with a faded spiderweb tattoo on his neck. We met once, briefly, in a different town to establish the rules. He doesn't want to know my name. He doesn't want to talk on the phone. The deal is the same every week. Every Wednesday at 5 p.m., I leave my office. I call my wife, Sarah. Hey, honey, gonna be late tonight. Meeting up with Dave from college for a quick drink to talk about that job opening at his company. Dave is a real person, a friend who lives 3 states away. It's an easy, believable lie. Then I drive 30 miles north to a different town. The meeting spot is always the same, the back corner of the parking lot behind a 24-hour laundromat called Spin City. The air there always smells faintly of bleach and despair. I park my sensible sedan in the last spot, facing the woods. I wait. I never have to wait long. A few minutes later, a beat-up, rusted blue pickup truck pulls in and parks next to me. It's Ray. I never get out of my car. He gets out of his truck and gets into my passenger seat. I hate this part. The car suddenly feels small, contaminated. He smells of stale cigarette smoke and coffee. We don't make small talk. I hand him an envelope. Inside is $200 in cash. I have to go to a specific ATM every Tuesday to withdraw it so it doesn't look suspicious on my bank statements. He quickly counts the money. Then he reaches into his pocket and hands me a small, crumpled brown paper lunch bag. He gets out of my car and is gone. The entire transaction takes less than a minute. This is the system. This is the routine I created to save my brother. A weekly ritual of lies, cash, and quiet, soul-crushing fear. The system has been in place for 4 years now. Over 200 Wednesdays, over 200 trips to that depressing laundromat parking lot, over 200 envelopes of cash, over 200 lies to my wife. The routine has become monotonous, but the fear never goes away. It's a low-grade chronic fever that I live with every day. The lie is no longer a single event, it's the foundation of my entire existence, and that foundation is starting to crack. My life with my wife Sarah has become a performance. We still function as a married couple. We coordinate the kids' schedules, we talk about what to have for dinner, we go to parent-teacher conferences. But the intimacy, the easy trust we used to have is gone. It's been replaced by a quiet, pervasive tension. I feel her watching me. I catch her looking at me when she thinks I'm not paying attention, her expression a mixture of confusion and a deep, weary sadness.
The money is the biggest source of the erosion. My secret is expensive. $200 a week is over $10,000 a year. It's a vacation we can't take. It's the kitchen renovation she's been dreaming of that we can't afford. It's the reason our savings account is stagnant and our credit card debt slowly, inexplicably creeps up. The conversations about money have become carefully choreographed dances of deception on my part. Just last month, we were sitting at the kitchen table after putting the kids to bed. The mail was on the table, including a credit card bill. She was staring at it, her fingers tracing the balance due line. "Mark," she said, her voice very quiet, "I don't understand this. We haven't made any big purchases. Where is the money going? It feels like we're just treading water." I had my answer ready. I always have an answer ready. "I know, honey, it's just everything is more expensive now. Gas, groceries, the kids' school fees went up. It all just adds up." I sounded reasonable. I sounded like a responsible husband concerned about the family budget. She looked up from the bill and met my eyes. "Is there something you're not telling me?" she asked. It wasn't an accusation. It was a genuine, vulnerable question. She was giving me an opening, a chance to come clean. And I couldn't take it. The lie was too big now. The truth would be a nuclear bomb. So I did what I always do. I lied. "No, of course not. We're a team. I would never hide something like that from you. I'll be more careful with spending. I'll cut back on my lunches out." She just shook her head, a single, sad, disappointed gesture. "I don't know who you are anymore. But I'm giving you 1 week, Mark. 1 week to start telling me the truth, or I'm taking the kids and going to my sister's. I'm done living inside your secret." She walked out of the room. The ultimatum just hung there in the air, a ticking clock that I had no idea how to stop. That night, I lay in bed next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The guilt was a physical presence in the room. I was stealing from my own family's future to fund my brother's secret addiction. Our intimacy has suffered. We don't talk like we used to. We coexist. I feel her watching me sometimes, trying to solve the puzzle of who her husband has become. The quiet, reliable man she married is now jumpy, secretive, and always tired. I tried to be a normal dad. I'll be at my daughter's soccer game cheering on the sidelines, and my phone will buzz. A text from Ethan, need to meet early this week. And just like that, the joy is gone, replaced by the cold dread. I have to invent a lie on the spot for my wife. Oh, it's just work. They need me to go into the office early tomorrow. Every part of my life is infected. And it's starting to escalate. A few months ago, he told me the Suboxone wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted me to get him Xanax too, for his anxiety. I said no. For the first time, I said no. And he got angry. The charm disappeared, and for a second, I saw the old, desperate Ethan. His eyes got hard. You owe me this. You're my brother. You're supposed to help me. I haven't gotten in the Xanax yet. Not yet. But the pressure is there. Our weekly meetings are more tense. He looks less healthy. The light is starting to go out of his eyes again. He started missing his motivational speaking gigs. Last week, my mom called me, worried. Ethan seems off lately. I'm so scared he's going to relapse. He won't, Mom, I said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. He's strong. I'm trapped. I can't stop. If I cut him off, he will go back to heroin. I know it. And this time he might not survive, and it would be my fault. Not because I cut him off, but because I didn't let him die that night. My monstrous decision in that bathroom has led to this. I chose to save his body, but I think I condemned his soul, and mine along with it. Yesterday he called me again. He was crying. He lost his part-time job at the coffee shop. He begged me for the Xanax again. Just this once, he pleaded, I can't handle it. I'm going to do something stupid, and if I do, it's on you. You're the one who saved me. You're responsible for me now.
He started saying that a lot, that I'm responsible. He's twisting my heroism into a leash, a way to control me. He knows I can't let him relapse because it would expose my entire lie. The miracle would be revealed as a failure. My parents' perfect story would be ruined. And he's using that. He's using my guilt as a weapon. My own life is shrinking. I don't see my friends anymore because I can't afford a night out, and I can't explain why. My relationship with my wife is becoming a series of evasions and half-truths. My entire existence has been reduced to this one grim secret task. I am not his guardian angel. I am his zookeeper. And the animal is getting restless, and I am standing in front of the cage with the keys in my hand, and I don't know what to do. Every week, the drive gets longer. Every week, the lie gets heavier. I don't know how this ends. I just know that it will. And I'm terrified that when it does, it's not just going to destroy him. It's going to destroy me and my own family, right along with him. The collapse is happening faster than I thought it would. The last few months have been a slow, grinding escalation. The threat my brother made in the car park wasn't a one-off outburst. It has become the new subtext of our entire relationship. He doesn't have to say it anymore. It's just there, hanging in the air during our tense weekly meetings. He knows that he has absolute leverage over me, my miracle story, the foundation of my parents' hard-won peace of mind, and my own heroic status within the family is a hostage, and he is the one holding the gun. His requests for Xanax became more frequent, more desperate. He would text me late at night, long, rambling messages about his crippling anxiety, about how he couldn't sleep, about how the Suboxone just wasn't quieting the noise in his head anymore. He'd write things like, I feel like I'm going to crawl out of my skin. You don't know what this is like. I need help, Mark, real help. He was framing it as a cry for help, but it felt like a demand. It felt like blackmail. I kept saying no, but it was getting harder. My refusals were met with days of angry, silent treatment, followed by another barrage of guilt-inducing texts. Fine, I guess I'll just have to handle it myself, he'd write. Hope I don't do anything stupid. He knew exactly which buttons to push. He knew my greatest fear wasn't just my lie being exposed, but the very real possibility that if I cut him off, he would actually go back to heroin and succeed in killing himself this time. And I knew deep down that I could not survive that. The guilt would be absolute. My decision in that bathroom tied my fate to his forever. Meanwhile, my life at home was becoming unbearable.
The distance between me and Sarah was now a vast, cold ocean. We stopped even pretending. We were roommates who were co-parenting. The questions about money became more pointed. 2 weeks ago, she cornered me in the kitchen. She had a printout from our credit card statement in her hand. "Mark, I want a real answer," she said, her voice devoid of any emotion. It was the calm that scared me the most. "There are cash withdrawals from an ATM in Northwood every single Tuesday for the last 3 years. Every single one is exactly $200. You don't work in Northwood. You don't have friends in Northwood. What is in Northwood, Mark?" I felt my blood turn to ice. I had been so stupid, so arrogant. I thought using a different ATM was enough. I never imagined she would go back and look at years of statements. I had no lie prepared for this. My mind was a complete blank. I just stared at her. "It's for a friend," I stammered. "I told you, he's in trouble." She didn't blink. "What's his name, Mark?" "You don't know him." "What's his name, Mark?" she repeated, her voice like steel. I couldn't say anything. Any name I invented, she could check. My silence was my confession. She just shook her head, a single sad, disappointed gesture. "I don't know who you are anymore," she whispered, "but I'm giving you 1 week, Mark. 1 week to start telling me the truth, or I'm taking the kids and going to my sister's. I'm done living inside your secret." She walked out of the room. The ultimatum just hung there, in the air, a ticking clock that I had no idea how to stop.
That night, I lay in bed next to her, wide awake, staring at the ceiling. The guilt was a physical presence in the room. I was stealing from my own family's future to fund my brother's secret addiction. Our intimacy has suffered. We don't talk like we used to. We coexist. I feel her watching me sometimes, trying to solve the puzzle of who her husband has become. The quiet, reliable man she married is now jumpy, secretive, and always tired. I try to be a normal dad. I'll be at my daughter's soccer game, cheering on the sidelines, and my phone will buzz. A text from Ethan. "Need to meet early this week." And just like that, the joy is gone, replaced by the cold dread. I have to invent a lie on the spot for my wife. "Oh, it's just work. They need me to go into the office early tomorrow." Every part of my life is infected. And it's starting to escalate. A few months ago, he told me the Suboxone wasn't enough. He wanted more. He wanted me to get him Xanax, too, for his anxiety. I said no. For the first time, I said no, and he got angry. The charm disappeared. And for a second, I saw the old, desperate Ethan. His eyes got hard. "You owe me this," he said. "You're my brother. You're supposed to help me." I haven't gotten him the Xanax, not yet, but the pressure is there. Our weekly meetings are more tense. He looks less healthy. The light is starting to go out of his eyes again. He started missing his motivational speaking gigs. Last week my mom called me, worried. "Ethan seems off lately," she said. "I'm so scared he's going to relapse." "He won't, Mom," I said, the lie tasting like ash in my mouth. "He's strong. I'm trapped. I can't stop. If I cut him off, he will go back to heroin. I know it. And this time, he might not survive. And it will be my fault. Not because I cut him off, but because I didn't let him die that night. My monstrous decision in that bathroom has led to this. I chose to save his body, but I think I condemned his soul. And mine along with it." Yesterday, he called me again. He was crying. He lost his part-time job at the coffee shop. He begged me for the Xanax again. "Just this once," he pleaded. "I can't handle it. I'm going to do something stupid. And if I do, it's on you. You're the one who saved me. You're responsible for me now." He started saying that a lot, that I'm responsible. He's twisting my heroism into a leash, a way to control me. He knows I can't let him relapse because it would expose my entire lie. The miracle would be revealed as a failure. My parents' perfect story would be ruined. And he's using that. He's using my guilt as a weapon. My own life is shrinking.
I don't see my friends anymore because I can't afford a night out and I can't explain why. My relationship with my wife is becoming a series of evasions and half-truths. My entire existence has been reduced to this one grim secret task. I am not his guardian angel. I'm a zookeeper, and the animal is getting restless. And I am standing in front of the cage with the keys in my hand, and I don't know what to do. Every week, the drive gets longer. Every week, the lie gets heavier. I don't know how this ends. I just know that it will. And I'm terrified that when it does, it's not just going to destroy him, it's going to destroy me and my own family, right along with him.